James Brown, no relation to the godfather of Soul. I was a mechanical engineer from University of Nebraska and then joined the military right out of college. I was an infantry officer in the United States Marine Corps for 40 years. Had a ton of great experiences leading Marines overseas. Came back, moved into information operations. I always felt like I wanted to go into entrepreneurship. It's what actually brought me to learn a little bit more about Daniel's program, Scale SD, and now I'm the CEO, co-founder of Fresh Start, which is a mobile application that connects food donors to food banks and gets food to the people who need it.
How did you learn initially about the Scale competition?
I actually heard about it from a friend. He was a veteran as well. He said, I know that there's this innovation hackathon that's coming up. It's put on by Scale SD, and I think that you should come check it out.
What specifically attracted you to that particular Scale event?
The initial topics that they had, I believe it was food insecurity, of course, and then it was urban mobility, and then it was urban planning and design, I believe. Being in the military, I really like that kind of the public-private partnership aspect of it all, just because I think it's an incredibly high acceleration market right now. And you can look around and see that a lot of the infrastructure that we have in our small governments and our large, in our federal government, they're antiqued, they don't have the best technologies, and they have the power to solve some of these really, really difficult problems, food insecurity being one of them, but they're just so set in their ways from the past. And so to be a part of the solution, I think, was one of the biggest driving forces. And then the ability to get some experience with entrepreneurship was just the icing on the cake. That was great.
Did you know anybody when you came to the Innovation Sprint?
No, that's actually one of my favorite parts of the story. I came in knowing the one person. I don't even know if they stayed for the whole thing. And that's actually why I almost didn't go, is because I was supposed to go with another one of my coworkers, but they had a wedding or something last minute, and so they had to bail. But I went anyway, and I'm glad I did, because just in the initial networking sessions that we had, which I think are set up pretty well, I think you had the 2 weeks before, you had an information session and kind of a networking event, and then you had one the week of the event on Wednesday, and I went to both of those. I started to see the same people at each event. I got to, over a good craft beer or two, I got to actually talking with them about what their interests were and okay, what topic are you going to try and pursue, and so on and so forth. So when the actual day kicked off, there were a few people that I could look around the room and actually say, hey, Jeremy, do you want to team up on this? And that's exactly what we did. It was almost too successful. I think we had like 6 people on the first team, and that definitely got shaved down, but it wasn't a big problem at all not to know anybody going in.
What was the initial idea that you came in with?
I came in, I think like every engineer does, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, thinking that you're going to change the world with whatever your background is. And my background was mechanical engineering, so I had this crazy idea, you probably remember, of an indoor farm bot that was going to like plant more crops in a high density area and all this stuff, which is still a really good idea, don't get me wrong, but probably not the time, the place, and right now is not the means, or I didn't have the means to actually do anything with that. And I'm glad my team kind of talked me towards what we eventually ended up with, which was kind of the initial prototype for Fresh Start. And before, it looked radically different too. We knew that we wanted to solve the problem with software after the first few hours of the event, and we knew we wanted to make it something that would stick with people and it would be super intuitive and easy to use. I think the first iteration was Digibytes or something similar to that.
Can you walk me through that process? So you came in with the idea. So you met your team, like 6 people.
Yep.
How did you go from there to the new idea of Digibytes and Fresh Start, and going from 6 people down to 2, I think, right?
Yep, down to 2 for a little bit, and then back up to 3, and now eventually 5.
So tell me about how that went.
So initially, I mean, you lock 6 people in a room together for 48 hours, and they better come up with something. The first part hurts, don't get me wrong. We started off, we snagged one of the conference rooms, and it really was, we were left to our own devices to actually try and develop a solution to the problem set, which was food insecurity. And initially, it was getting to know the people in the group a little bit more deeply. So what were their backgrounds? We had data scientists, we had engineers, we had marketing and relations experts, all walks of life. And a lot of it was just throwing spaghetti at the wall in the very beginning. And that's that painful part. It is the brainstorming part. And everyone's got their piece of the recipe that they want to have kind of stick. And so I think that the biggest obstacle in the very beginning is probably those egos. And if you've got a good team that is able to kind of leave most of the ego out of it and start to just try to understand the problem a lot better instead of, whatever you think is the solution right away. That's what really saved us in the end. The first couple of hours we were just brainstorming and thinking about crazy solutions, but then over the next, I would say like 12 to 15 hours, and I mean, they definitely blurred together. We started to focus more on the actual problem and what the pain points for individuals were. And that's how we ended up on the logistics, the transportation of the actual food instead of incentivizing people or something else.
So first of all, what happened to the team? How did you become the leader of the team? How did this process go for you specifically?
Oh man, I hope well, but it depends on who you ask. But I just being from the military and coming from a leadership background, I can have a very assertive personality, but I tried to kind of put that on the back burner and let everybody speak, but also be the voice of reason or kind of the bottom line guy of like, okay, this is great, but what are we doing to actually get after the milestones we need to hit, or the PowerPoint that we need to make, or the questions we need to answer? And I think that just being hyper focused on keeping the main thing kind of made me arise as the leader of the bunch. But I think that one of the greatest strengths that we have as a team is that every person now is very much a leader in their own right in their respective area. And I think that was even present a little bit in the beginning as well. I don't think that any one of us was overpowering so much so that it was driving us apart or creating a divide or anything like that. I think that me personally growing through this has been tremendous, just because I'm put in a situation where I didn't know a lot about software development, didn't know a lot about the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So for me, in my personal growth as a manager, as a leader, it's been tremendous.
So what happened next? So then you basically zoomed in on your idea, and by that time it was two of you, right? Mm-hmm. And you guys were one of the finalists of the challenge, right?
Yep. And that's when we were starting to join with another team that was more logistics focused, and we had kind of the incentivized food delivery, so like the first half of the business model, so to speak. And we joined forces with that team, and we were finalists at the hackathon. And then we were selected to go on for the 2-month incubation period, where we would be really forming the company and actually trying to get after key performance indicators, actually finding out what our metrics would be, and trying to create something here.
When you look back on 2.5 months acceleration program, what were some of the highlights and what were some of the lowlights of that?
At that point, the lows of that were probably right after the hackathon. We had about 3 or 4 people just absolutely, we started with 6. At some point we were up to 8. And then very quickly it was down to 2. And you start to really understand that there's a lot of people that, and by no fault of their own, people were students, people had full-time jobs, people were not interested in the idea anymore. There are a lot of reasons why people do fall off in the lifestyle. The projects or entrepreneurship is not for everybody, but it is still kind of a kick in the shorts when you've worked on something with somebody for a while now and then they drop off. And so you're kind of left with either by yourself or with a few other teammates saying, okay, what do we do now? How do we come back from that? What skills do we need now to complement what we have? And that was definitely probably the lowest of lows. I would say that the highs, besides the actual end of the event, I would say that the highs were when we started to get a lot of feedback from the end users. So one of the biggest pieces of advice we got, and I I would say this to anybody who's in the process or wants to actually start a company, is talk to that end user. So we went to the food bank. We started talking to people who are knowledgeable in the city about food waste and recovery. And we started to get an understanding of what the actual pain points were, what they thought the solution was, and all sorts of things. And it was awesome because you really started to see that, okay, there is a problem here and I can fix that problem, and we just need to do X, Y, Z. Didn't usually last long because you then realize you need to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, all of that. But you started to get the plan starts to come together the more you work on it. And that's a really rewarding feeling.
What helped you to persevere and stay through all this and still end up the winner of the whole thing?
I think that one of the biggest things that might get overlooked is find something that you're truly passionate about, that you truly care about, and then be radically honest with whoever you're doing it with about why you're doing it, what you want out of it, and where you want to go. I think that every entrepreneur has some financial incentive in mind for why they do the things they do, but that's probably not going to materialize for a long time. So I think in the very beginning, you really have to be mission driven about what it is that you're actually trying to accomplish, and pick a topic that you truly care about. And it could be anything. It could be better user experience or in some facet, or a better B2B enterprise solutions, or whatever it is. For ours, it was easy because food insecurity is a very tangible thing that you really do get to see the greatness of what you're doing when somebody is having a meal that they didn't have before, and that you were able to be the linkage for them. So for us, it was really what kept us going through some of those low points. And then the transparency was absolutely crucial, because I felt like, especially in Jeremy's case, who was my initial co-founder at the time, and then Nick, who also came on during this time, or is a co-founder, it was crucial to look at them, look everybody in the eye and say, hey, I can allocate this much time. I want to do this, this, and this, and I'm still in it. These are my concerns about the whole thing, and this is my threshold for what I'm willing to take in that regard. And I don't think I've hit that yet, so let's keep going. And every single one of us was able to provide that at multiple points. There were definitely a few points where I was like, oh man, I don't know if I, can keep going. But then I look around and Jeremy's like, well, I think I'm good for a little bit longer. Like, I want to keep going. And Nick was like, I think I'm good. I want to keep going. And so I was like, well, dang it, I better be good too. So I want to keep going because I don't want to let the team down either. So there are a lot of different things, but those are the ones that stand out.
Maybe you can tell a little bit more about the review gates, the review meetings that we had, and the mentorship throughout the acceleration part.
The biggest things that spring to my mind are KPIs, are key performance indicators. What are your metrics? What are your milestones? And how are you getting there? And how are you tracking it? And that was huge for us in the very beginning, because it's very easy to be all over the place, especially if you've never had experience with entrepreneurship before. You could be completely focused on the wrong thing, but it's very good to have a data-driven approach for, I am doing 1, 2, 3 today, so I can get to 4, 5, 6 tomorrow, and then XYZ in a month. And that was very helpful. Some of the intangibles for the mentorship were huge as well. I should have said this in the very beginning, but the gates were every 2 weeks, we would have a gate that we had to get through with some monetary prize that was associated with it. And it was really, really helpful for us because of the accountability. But also every time they would have a new focus for us. This gate might be focused on, hey, what are you thinking about your financials and where are you going to go in this regard? And this gate, they might have us talk to this expert at the city and what's our business model? What's our value proposition? Do we have that locked down? And can we sell this thing? Those are what I would kind of call is more of the intangibles. Yes, they're based off a framework, but those were the real big ones where it's all common sense. Everyone says like, nothing in here is new or rocket science or anything like that, but just the understanding of what that structure is, what's worked in the past for countless other entrepreneurs, nudging you in the right direction for like, every company's got to have a business model. What's yours? And think about it now. Don't think about it later. I think was invaluable for us in the very beginning.
You became one of the winners of the whole innovation program. Mm-hmm. What happened then? What happened after that?
I think that was another one of those times that all three of us kind of looked around and said, okay, well, are you still in? And we came out of that saying, yeah, I'm still in. What happened then was, okay, well, we've really got to focus on creating that structure for ourselves, being that structure for ourselves. And we started to, just do the fundamentals that we had kind of learned in the program, thinking about new milestones to hit, have team meetings and understand where we're going and where we want to, how we want to get there. And not too long after the accelerator was over, we got into 2 key partnerships with San Diego, and we were already doing live deliveries over the course of the next few months. It's definitely been rough with COVID, and it definitely kind of had us have a dip in operations for quite some time, but we're slowly picking it back up and running with it. And at this time, and you can see on the website and everything, some of the food that we have delivered, but it's been thousands of pounds of food and hundreds of meals so far. And I just got off the phone with the lead kitchen coordinator from People Assisting the Homeless over in San Diego. And I mean, it's fantastic when you're a known name in a food bank and people are waiting on Fresh Start meals because they know they're going to get a nutritious meal that day if they hear the name Fresh Start. Heck of a ride.
This is awesome. What are the top 3 things that were really beneficial for you at the Scale Innovation Program?
I would say that first one was the accountability. And this kind of wraps together a few of the questions that you had asked previously. Everybody who wants to be an entrepreneur gets in it for a variety of different reasons. They do want to be an entrepreneur, but it's hard. And just like school or work or anything, I think that having somebody hold you accountable and give you a structure, organize something, put it in place to kind of be that mentorship and that guidance every step of the way, it's so valuable, and it's more valuable than a lot of people realize. And I think that's what, if I'm being honest with myself, was one of the key takeaways was just, hey, you've got something and you need to get it done by this gate, and so you better hurry up and do it. And oh, by the way, this is training you to be proactive by yourself later on. So it's good for you to have this knowledge. I would say the second thing is there's a big focus, and I didn't say this before, but it's actually super, super important, is don't wait for things to be perfect. Whatever it is, get your service out there, get whatever you're doing out there into the world quickly, and just let it break, let it fail, do whatever. People aren't going to care that much, and you're going to gain so much from understanding how it broke and what did people like about it, what did people not like about it, then trying to do everything and waiting a year to get something perfect and then releasing it and having it break anyway because it's going to, and just having to redo it then. So one of the approaches that I think the accelerator was really good at was just getting you to start to go out and fail very quickly so that you could start to succeed later on. Third thing and last thing, I think, would probably just be the network. Just talking with everybody at the events, in the accelerator, meeting all of the mentors, meeting you guys who are putting it on. Still people, obviously, that I keep in touch with, and people that I've called up on completely different things, either at on other roles or just out of the blue to go grab a drink with, or coming back in and seeing now like a new crop of individuals that are coming through the accelerator program, how they're approaching problems and all that, and getting to see them kind of go through that same process. That's been great too. It's been pretty tremendous.
It's great to hear your story. It's people like you that's what make Scale what it is. It was really great to have you in the program. It's really great to have you as a mentor to the program as well.
Yeah.